Today we're with Roman. We're going to be talking about how to get out of that dark spot, how to get back into the light. I feel like a lot of us struggle with maybe being in the dark or feeling like things aren't going necessarily how we want them to in life. And we're not in the place where we want to be. And sometimes we're not even happy. And I think the cool aspect of this, me and Roman were talking a minute ago, and he said, well, I don't know if I feel comfortable about talking about something like this because I haven't made it through yet. I'm still in the dark. But I think that's a unique experience and perspective because a lot of people talk about what they've succeeded in, right? You have all these successful podcasters and all these people who are doing great things and writing these books, but they've all made it through. And sometimes it's good to have that perspective and be able to hear somebody who's still struggling with it because, to have somebody who's, made it through or to have somebody who's going through it with you as they're going through it, I think is huge because they're walking with you. They're going through with you. So let's talk about that today, Roman. Just introduce yourself. Let's talk about this and let's go through it. Introduce yourself, but not only just introduce yourself, tell them maybe a little bit about what's going on with you and why you feel like you're still in the dark.
All right, hi y'all. My name is Roman Hinterreiter. Born in Texas, lived in the greater Austin area for the majority of my life. Not all of it, but most of it. And I've been walking, as Jesus says, I believe the narrow road, but for the longest time realizing I was on that narrow road without even realizing it because I haven't been a believer I've only been a genuine believer for like 2.5 years.
Mm.
And kind of after coming to faith and looking back at my life, kind of realizing you get to see how his hand has, been guiding you and how things that should have ended in disaster didn't. And you always wonder, why didn't they? And you kind of realize, like, oh, he was there and he's been subtly nudging and influencing things left and right. You just don't see it until later on when you get the bigger picture. But I've been, my story is pretty weird. It's not normal because I grew up, moving place to place every year and never really having, a stable living environment or a stable family for that matter. It was always just my mom, my dad, and even I can seriously argue they weren't really mom and dad. They were more like caretaker and stranger. My dad wasn't around much. At all, and when he just caused problems because he's got his own very strange behavior that no one is seemingly able to understand why he does what he does. And my mom's been, she's had severe mental illness from her own life traumas and trying to raise me, and things just going, she's basically very emotionally unavailable, and just, here's your food, shelter, and clothes, and that's about it. And always having that, always feeling like an outsider pretty much everywhere I would go, and never gaining that, that tribal perspective, always being on the outside of that and living life like you're looking through a window, trying to get in from the dark and cold and wanting to be inside next to the fireplace, but never actually able to get there. But that's the short and sweet of it. There's a lot I can go into, but a lot of bad things happen, a lot of always witnessing conflict and instability and, having your parents' insecurities projected on you is never a healthy way to grow up.
Yeah, I think, you said something at the beginning which was like, it wasn't really normal, and I think you may feel like you're the only one out there who struggles with this, but I talk with a lot of people. I feel like a lot of their families are broken. A lot of people struggle with feeling like they're looking from the outside in on their own life and that they're trying to figure it out and trying to, I guess, get out of that dark spot, right? Because we get stuck. We feel stuck because we've been through so much. We feel stuck because our parents weren't there emotionally and physically. And we feel stuck because we feel alone and we feel like we're looking from the outside into our own lives and trying to figure it out and trying to see this perspective. And you being a believer and a believer only for a couple years, that could be a struggle because you feel like, all right, God, you're God, and church preaches this one thing to where it's supposed to sound like a perfect life once you come to Jesus and you start accepting him, that everything's just going to be good and that path is going to be just an easy walk, a yellow brick road maybe, but it's not. A lot of times it's not. And I think that it's easy to feel alone and isolated and everything else when you're going through this, but like you said, it's the narrow path, right? And I always feel like if your walk is too easy, maybe you're going the wrong direction. Because if you don't ever have that resistance in your life, maybe you don't ever have the enemy coming and trying to attack you. Like, why is he going to attack you if you're going down the wrong direction? You're not going to where God wants you to be, but you're going the opposite direction. Why would the enemy even like bother you if you're going straight to hell and you're doing the bad things and you're doing the things that he wants you to do? He isn't going to bother you. But when you're going in the direction where God wants you to go, that's where you're going to find that resistance. I feel like that's where we feel like we're in the dark spot, but it's actually walking towards the light, because that builds us strength, that builds us stronger, that gives us the resilience that we need as individuals, even though we don't see it at the time. When we're going through the darkness, it's hard to look forward, but as you made it through some of those things, it's easier to look back. Like you mentioned, like you could tell that God kind of had his hand on the things and kind of guiding you to where that's easier to look back on, right? But going forward, it's hard to say, like, God, am I just alone here? Am I the only one who's doing this? What are we doing? Why is life so hard? So let's talk about some of those hard things that you've been through, because I think we could get the short of the story, right? Which, hey, here's the gist, but I think where it really starts helping people is getting into some of those details and sharing those with them, because one of the things I want to try to do with this podcast is let people know that they're not alone, that it's not just them. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, there's been many revelations made apparent to me over time for many reasons. Because as growing up, I always had this bizarre sense of like, I'm not like these people. I'm not like this new group of kids or peers or whatever that I would, be forced into every other year, because every year we moved and all that. But always having this barrier up, and I never understood why. Like, why can't I seem to get it? Why can't I seem to just meld in with everyone else like I can see everyone else does? Why does it always, why is there always this wall, this barrier between me and others that keeps us disconnected, personally and socially, and even it feels spiritually a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I always wondered what's up? Why am I the problem? What's the matter here? Why don't I fit in ever? And of course, later down the line, I had a good friend of mine who, first person I ever met, I'll keep him nameless, but first person I ever met that I connected with right off the bat. And it was very strange feeling, because I was like, what is happening? Why am I able to connect with this person so well versus, the hundreds of people I've come across with my journey up to that point. And, upon getting to know him, and then his mom started talking to my mom, and finding out he was on, I'm probably going to get the terminology wrong with this because it's changed so many times in the past year or past, half decade. He was diagnosed with something called Asperger's syndrome, which now they don't use that term anymore for very silly reasons, in my opinion. But basically on the spectrum, autistic, whatever you want to call it now. There's too many broad terms for it now, in my opinion. But after, getting to know him, and his mom made a suggestion, mom was like, maybe Roman should go get tested, And of course I did. Went to this very odd little facility where they, stick you in a room, ask you a million questions, do like focus tests and all that. Remember once they stuck me in a room and they said, all right, here's a computer with a keyboard, and here's basically there's a dot on it, and you just have to keep hitting the space bar to, basically keep focus. Just keep mashing the space bar over and
Yeah.
over. And for a long time, I just stopped because I was like, what? Why am I doing this for so long? It felt, I was in there for probably like 30 minutes.
Wow.
At least it felt like that. And I was just sticking my head out the door being like, what is going on? I think they were testing me for ADHD or ADD or something. But I didn't stop because I wasn't focused. I was like, well, what is the point of this? Why is this going on so long? But that's kind of irrelevant. But yeah, eventually getting a test, and they're like, yep, you are on the spectrum, as they call it.
Mm.
Back then it was Asperger's syndrome. That's what they diagnosed me with. And then I was like, oh, well, that was the element I was missing for pretty much my early life. And then finding out my friend, he got specialized help very early on, so he was able to get these skills and all that very early. And it led to him being much more adjusted and culpable, and yeah. But then finding out, it was kind of, at first it didn't sink in. I just kind of thought it was just another, because when you're younger, these diagnoses don't make sense to you.
You don't understand them.
Yeah, they don't walk you through about what it means. They just tell you you have it, and most of the time just tell you take the pills. But as over time, I started to learn more and more, and start to realize, like, oh, this is why I don't do well socially. This is why, my mind, when I try to describe how my mind works, everyone's always giving me, like, you can see question marks in their eyes, like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean you can vividly see or everything you think in real time? And I'm like, yeah, that's just how my mind works. Like, I'm thinking in movies and pictures all the time. It's like living in two different worlds, interlaced, kind of like in a film reel, where like 2 frames will be the real world, next 2 frames will be whatever I'm thinking about, next 2 frames the real world, and it switches back and forth. And then,
Yeah.
when you're more stressed out, you get more stuck in your head and always doing the same thing over and over, just going it over countless times in your head and trying to piece it together and process it. And then, you imagine what it's like to splice 2 films together in a movie, and if you were to play it, it would look pretty weird. You'd be trying to follow 2 plot lines at once, and I don't think most people could do that, or be very confused by it.
Yeah, so here you go. Just living your life, then you realize that you're on the spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
that you struggle with it, but did you feel like you were able to get the help and resources that you needed?
No, not at all.
Mm.
Because the Texas school system, so if they find out, and I don't know if this is like this for every county or this is how it is in the greater Austin area.
This was your experience.
This is my experience, but I have been told by a lot of other people from a lot of other different parts of the state that it's borderline identical. Upstate, or going more towards Houston, going towards more San Antonio, a lot of the same.
All
Or
right.
basically, if they find out you've got some kind of diagnosis, whether it be ADD or on the spectrum, or maybe you've got some other disorder, some dissociative disorder, or anything of that nature, anything that is not the normal,
Yeah.
that's a red flag to them. That's how they see it. Instead of seeing someone, or if you've got any kind of learning disability like dyslexia, dyscalculia, anything like that, or if you're just a little slow, they look at you, and by they I mean like the school board, or because I always I don't look at these things as like people. That's just how I see it. It's a system.
Yeah.
The system looks at you, and they see you as a problem. They go, oh, this one's not like the others. This one's not going to fall in line like them. They're going to question our methods, essentially, is what I've come to see it as. Or they're just not going to fit our mold. And so they go, well, we don't put any value in people like that, so we're going to treat them like criminals.
Well,
And the reason I say that is because what they do is they'll take you, and then they'll put you in, the special ed program. Well, then you find out when you get in the special ed program is the exact same thing as the delinquent program, where if you've got kids who are doing legitimate criminal activity, drug use, vandalism, you name it, stuff of that nature, they lump those two parties together. So if you're just struggling to learn and you're just struggling to keep up, well, they see that as the same as you being a delinquent because that's the people they put you with. And then the group, because in my district, they called it, I think it was West or something. That's what the program was called. And basically, they segregate you from everybody. They say you still attend classes sometime for the most part, but it's very clear, like, you're not like everyone else, and they make it known. Like, everyone else sees you as different because, your off periods are different, and you always have a home place you have to go and report to so they can monitor and keep up with. Are you doing your work? What are you struggling with? They ask you, what are you struggling with? But when you ask them, I need help with this, they don't provide any help. They just say, oh, no, go in this room, sit in this room where we can monitor you and just try and figure it out. But I'm like, well, where's this specialized help? Oh, we're not going to, we don't provide. Or if they put you in a special class, they make you just do the same work over and over. I'm like, we're not learning here. It's just busy work.
Just to keep you there and kind of push you through the system. So, in all regards to it, I think at different levels and different stages, they have different programs. But I have been to some special ed classes myself. And they call it special ed. And you are right. They don't separate the special ed. And it's not like, well, they have this problem over here. And I will say it seems like you said that they put you with the delinquents and these people causing trouble. But a lot of these people who have learning disabilities, they struggle. So what they do is they actually act out because they're struggling. So it may seem like to you like, oh, they just put you with all these criminals and delinquents. But those people are struggling in life and usually in school, which makes them go do these things, which you're right. And they just clump everybody together. But I don't think they're taking intentional, because they have alternative schools and other programs where if you're one of these bigger criminals or one of these people causing more trouble, they actually send you out of the school. But the people with the learning disabilities, from my own experience, are, yes, all the people who are doing drugs, or all the people who are getting in trouble, who are fighting, who are throwing desks and chairs and everything else too. And yes, those are special ed, and they just kind of clump them all together.
Because in my experience, because there was very clearly, yes, we would act out, but we wouldn't act out because in my situation, I got put in here, because there was something going on in that specialized part of the school almost every day. Someone was acting out. And I got to know a lot of them pretty well, and I got lumped in with the shady. How there's the different cliques.
Yeah.
There's the jocks, and then there's the kind of delinquent clique where everyone's the drug at our school. It was the druggies, because our school also had a huge drug problem, serious.
I think all schools, especially in high school, once you hit that, have a huge.
Ours
problem.
was really bad.
Yeah.
Methamphetamine, crystal being passed around. I'd walk in to the bathroom and you smell that plasticky smell, that burning plastic smell, and I'm like, what are you doing? He's very clearly got a meth pipe, and I'm like, oh man, that's bad. And you're doing it in here, oof. But they always kind of trusted me because they're like, oh yeah, he's not gonna rat, because I wouldn't, because I was like, I know what they're gonna do. But at the same time, I'm like, you shouldn't be doing that. But where was I going? In my experience, because going into that, I was legit always asking, can someone please help me with my work? Can someone please, relay this in a way that makes sense to me, or go over it with me? Because I would always go up, they give you a giant textbook, and I'd be like, I don't understand the textbook. I don't get what this is asking of me. Go up to the aide and be like, can you help me with this? And he goes, no, the textbook's got everything you need in it. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't understand the textbook, though. Can you provide me? Oh, you don't have any skills of your own. Okay. So you're just here to watch me. That's what this is all about. And over time, being in that environment where I'm like, I've never done anything wrong. I'm just struggling to get through this. But I'm treated in the same way. Again, if something goes wrong, if you do anything out of line, they let you know that they are not happy with you.
Yeah.
Or if you screw up, or if I screw up, it's just, don't get your work done on time, or, make it clear that you don't get it.
So you feel like almost in a sense you mess up, they're going to let you know. But if you ask for help, they're not really there to support
No,
you.
not at all.
And like you said at the beginning, you know, your mom and dad, your dad wasn't really there. And when it was just chaotic. And then your mom just made sure you had the bare necessities, but you didn't really have that support
No.
everywhere you went. And that's why it kind of seems like you're in the dark a lot, because here you are and you want to try to get help and nobody wants to help you at school. They put you with all these bad people who are doing all these drugs and all these other things in the classes to give you the special ed needs that you need, but they don't really give you the resources which you really want or need also.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're struggling to fit in socially because you realize that you're on the spectrum, which is hard enough as it is, right? To function normally in a community or a public setting, and then you don't have any support, you don't have help. You go home, you don't have help. Don't have a dad, so that's no help either. And it's just like chaos everywhere you go. You just go everywhere, and it just seems like chaos, chaos, chaos.
I wouldn't actually use the word chaos. I would use the word stagnation. Because for me, it's just like always going around and just seeing nothing's happening. Nothing's happening.
Nothing's happening. Just your whole life. That's where you start feeling stuck, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start feeling stuck, and then it doesn't matter where you're going or what you're doing, you feel like you're stuck.
Because everywhere, you know, use the farmer analogy. Like I'm trying to go around and like plant seeds for my personal growth, plant seeds for social behavior, plant seed for, you know,
Future,
dreams, everything. Yeah, laying the groundwork. It seems like everywhere I would go, that I would be on tainted soil, where no matter what I do and what sand I planted, it would not grow because the soil is just toxic. Just would not grow. Nothing can grow. You're starving, and of all the things you genuinely need, like I said, you can give someone clothes, shelter, and food, but that's not going to make them grow. That's just, you know, you're basically just on survival mode at that point.
And that's hard because you feel stuck. You feel stagnant, like you said. And if you're stagnant, that's pretty much the same as death in my sense, because you're just staying there. And you want to grow, and there's no new life coming. There's nobody to really help you along the way. And it just feels like, you know, you were sharing with me the other day, even like your old pastor at your other church, like some of the things he said to you is like, here you go trying to grow in your faith again, right? But you still struggle as a person. We all struggle as as humans. And I think a lot of times we want that help. We want that growth. Sometimes we don't know how to get there. I think that's one of the most important things. But one of the things I do like what you're doing right now is you're still in the dirt, right? You're still in the dark. And you're speaking up about it. You're talking about it. You're getting on this podcast today. We're going to start creating resources. You're going to start writing a book about these things. You're going to start doing this. So even though you're struggling with it, you still want to provide what you've wanted, but for other people. I think that's huge. And that's a different mindset and different growth that doesn't always get looked at or always is counted, because it's like, wow, look at what you're going to produce right now.
Yeah.
And maybe, I'm not saying always, but maybe some of the things that you went through or experienced were for a purpose. God's purpose, right? Not a good purpose of like, hey, I want to do this in the world and I'm not getting all this, but God's purpose now where he could use you because you've endured that, you understand it, you have the empathy for it, to where a lot of people don't have that empathy, don't have that heart, don't even have that understanding. I could say I understand being stagnant in life because I've been there before. I could understand, trying to want to grow, and then somebody's just like, no, I'm just here. You don't understand it. Everything you need to know is in the book. The truth of the matter is everything we do need to know is in the book, but it's not a school book. It's the Bible. I feel like the more we get that word implanted in our heart, that grows, and it's not on just rocky soil or something that won't produce a harvest. And I just love how you're here today and we're talking about this, because I think this is the first step into the growth. I feel like this is the first step into your season of harvest time. Even if you look at an apple seed and you look it up and you Google it right now, it says it takes 7 to 10 years from the time that you plant the seed before you get your first apple. That doesn't mean a full tree full of apples, but from the first apple. So the things you were going through 10 years ago, the things you were going through 15 years ago, whatever it was, and you were trying to plant those seeds, a lot of times they're not going to come forth until harvest season, which could be 7, 10, 15 years later. And it could definitely be hard. So here you are, you're struggling at your house, you're struggling with your family, you're struggling in life. You find out that you're on the spectrum of
Mm-hmm.
autism, and then you don't even get the help that you need.
Nope. And the worst part is like, since not getting the help you need, because for those who have experienced, a kid or have a friend that are on the spectrum or whatever, there's things that come along with that. And one of those is the meltdowns. It's a very real thing, because when you get overstimulated, and that can be emotional stimulation, physical stimulation, mental stimulation, you feel like you're going to explode inside. You feel this just gnawing, like you feel like a nuclear reactor that is melting down, and your mind half the time goes rogue, and it leads to you as what the school would look as criminal behavior. But really what it is, it's like, no, there's a physical, chemical malfunction happening inside your brain, and you go crazy for a little bit. And I was decent at controlling it for a long time, because trying to just keep stimulus down and keep to myself, and but inside though, when you walking on tainted soil your whole life, just trying to grow, trying to progress, like it does make you crazy when you just can't.
Well,
And
let's talk about that a little bit, because sometimes you get in these situations and you feel like you can't even talk to anybody. So you shared with me before that you went to somebody at your school, maybe a counselor or something, and you were telling them how you were feeling, and then what happened with that? Share that story with us.
So basically, they had this thing where like every 2 or 3 weeks you would go meet there was the school counselors, and then there was the specialized counselor.
Mm-hmm.
And the school counselors, for regular kids, you just go to whenever you need them.
Yeah.
For them, they make you check in with them. For the specialized one, and you would go talk to her, and basically, like, I never knew how to open up, because I never trusted these people, and they made it constantly, to me, prove that like they're not worthy of trust. And then later, as I'll explain, that was very true. But I would open up to her because they knew I was depressed, and I was just giving up on even trying to attempt schoolwork, and I wasn't showing up for his school most of the time. And I just said, screw this. I'm not doing this anymore. This is making me crazy. Like, y'all are treating me like a criminal. So I started getting in this mindset of like, well, might as well just start acting like one, since this is what you want, and I got no way out. And they saw me degrading over time, and they knew how bad I was getting. Like, I was getting scary, because I was constantly vocalizing, I'm not doing well. What are y'all gonna do? And they would always just do nothing. Just the same thing over and over, just expecting it to change. And of course, we know that's the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
And I vocalized to her like, hey, I'm depressed. I hate this life I've been given. I hate the world I'm in. I hate this situation. I hate my family. I hate you people. And I just would vocalize like, I hate being here. I don't want to be here anymore. Like, in life sucks. Y'all don't help. You make it worse. I just vocalized that to her, not expressing any intent or anything. But, then she basically just kind of flipped the switch and said, yeah, I think you're a threat. You're a danger to yourself and others right now, specifically yourself. So I'm going to have to go call, I think it was like the truancy officer or something. Not truancy officer, but she got the police involved. She's like, I think you're a threat to yourself right now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm trying to vocalize I'm finally opening up to you about my feelings, because I'm getting that bad. And now you're like, you're calling the police? What? And then, of course, officer shows up. He's like, yeah, I think we're going to have to come take you to a facility. And I'm like, what are you talking about, facility? What? And they're like, yeah, you're going to have to come. Because I had been to one before for an incident, but that's because I just kept melting down and, losing it. And, eventually it led to self-harm. But this time, I just genuinely opened my thoughts to them. Like, this is how I feel. And they're just like, yeah, we're going to have to, we're not going to take you on your word. We're going to assume things. And so, in the middle of the day, they're like, all right, we're going to a facility again for a week. And I went, all right, and I made it clear that I'm never opening up to y'all ever again, because I can't, you're not trustworthy.
So here you are. You go try to talk to one of your counselors or therapists at school, tell them how you're feeling, and all of a sudden they call up the officer and now they're sending you to a facility, which makes you even want to close off more and not talk to people,
Mm-hmm.
makes you not trust people more when you already don't have anybody to trust. And these are things that they don't teach you in school. They don't teach you how to, like, how do you trust somebody? How do you open up to somebody? How do you express your feelings? What's emotional intelligence, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are these things? They don't. Sometimes some places offer what's called social emotional learning, but if that's what they were teaching you, then you go try to share with them what's going on. And I will tell you, what year did you graduate?
2016.
2016. So the emotional, social learning was more for like younger kids with disabilities, but more schools have started to adapt that since after COVID. Just putting that out there. But it's still a thing to where you come, open up. Now it's a trust factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that you trust, everybody that you talk to, they either want to judge you, and that is, that started in high school. But you were telling me the other day that you were part of like this band, this group, this thing at church, and you kind of broke down and you got angry. You did something, and then all of a sudden, just everybody kind of just disowned you again. So
Yeah.
one more thing, like you start trying to share your emotions, you try to share your feelings. People don't understand it, and then they write you off, or now you're the bad guy, or now you're a liability, or now they don't want to hang out with you. And this is a cycle that just keeps going on from when you were young to now when you're old. And this last one that you shared with that happened in the church and the community and people that you were with there, that was not too long ago. So it's not like these are the things that are in the past. And that's the thing that I love about Roman right now. He's sharing what he's going through right now. Like, if you guys are going through it and you're listening, like, you guys could relate. This isn't just him sharing, like, he's figured it out and now he's wrote some wonderful book and just wanted to come on a podcast to share it with you guys. No, he is physically going through it right now. This thing just happened not too long ago with the church, and now he's feeling it again. He felt it in high school. He felt it with his parents. He feels it, and just a cycle that just keeps going over and over and over, and now he feels stuck again because he went to the church where the church should have been the safe haven, where the church should have accepted him, where the church should have loved him. And now they're pushing him away, telling him these things. So let's just talk about that aspect where you just feel like this cycle of not being able to trust people, not being able to talk to people. Now when you talk to people, it always just turns into something different.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Because, like anytime I get involved with, say a new group of friends or individual or whatever it is, I just let them, I just be genuine and go, hey, I'm not the most stable person. It is how it is. It's not a choice. It's never a choice. It's just how it is. And like when I'm not doing well, like I'll let you know. I'm gonna let you know. Like I will reach out. But that always leads to this bizarre thing where like all of my quote unquote friendships have always been incredibly one-sided, where basically like I'm the one always reaching out to them because I guess they see like, oh, anytime he reaches out, he's just gonna talk about his problems, which is not at all the truth. Like I got many things to talk about, and a lot of times I just want to be like, hey, I just want to be around people who are genuine, because in my view, especially when getting involved with a church, there's this fakeness that just permeates everything. Like, and really like delving in prayer about this. And I was always wondering, what is bothering me about this? Why does this not sit right? You go into church, they greet you, they shake your hand, but it never goes much further than that unless you really push. And even if you do really push, like in the first church I went to, they would always say, oh no, we're going to reach out to you. Don't worry. We're going to reach out to you. They never do. Never did. And always wondering, okay, why is this fakeness bothering me? Because it seems like, in my opinion, the modern church, or majority of especially big churches or more organizational churches, if you come into there legitimately showing that you're bearing your cross and that your cross is too heavy and you need help lifting it, they don't like that. They don't like that you're showing your cross.
It's almost they want that perfect Sunday suit, that perfect
Exactly.
family, that perfect person.
Exactly.
And I felt that even when I was going through my divorce, when I was going through the hardest time in my life, I was struggling a little bit mentally, emotionally, physically, everything. I felt like the church pushed me, the bigger church. Don't get
Hmm.
me wrong, the church I'm at now is great and I love them. But it was the bigger church, and it's just like, well, we don't want you in the picture when we're taking pictures on Sundays because we don't want to post somebody like you on social media reaching out to the pastors to help. Well, we're pastoring too many people and I don't have time. And I
Hmm.
even have a security guard that follows me up on stage and these other things, or that's always right there. And like, I don't have time for the person. I have time to ask for tithings. I have time to, tell you about all these great things that we're doing in the community. But I don't have time for you when you're struggling. And
Hmm.
I get that. That's hurtful because you've already been pushed away. You've already been hurt. The people that you've talked to in the past push you away and they hurt you. And now the church is doing it. And the saddest part about that is sometimes when the church does that, and the worst part about it, sometimes you feel like God's doing that. I feel
Hmm.
like, wow, I'm not even good enough for God. I'm not even good enough for the church.
Well,
This is supposed to be God's house, and then I'm being pushed away. What are your thoughts and feelings on
I
that?
say for me, I never actually felt that this was God. I
That's good.
felt that it was. I'm like, no, this is people. This is a people thing. This is a Satan thing. This is a
Mm,
people being put on puppet strings, and they don't
yeah.
even realize it. They don't even realize they're on the devil's puppet strings, and they're doing what he wants. And they have no conception that they're
Even
actually.
inside the church.
Mm-hmm.
Even inside the church. I like that
Because
you said that because I feel like too often people think that it's God. So,
Because yeah, I never got the feeling that it was, but it sparked this, and the reason I knew it wasn't God doing this is because it sparked such anger in me, like deep resentment, where I'm like, this is wrong, this is not biblical, this is
mm,
the exact opposite of what Jesus said. Because again, Jesus himself even needed when he was about to be crucified, someone had to step in and help carry his cross for a short time,
yeah.
like physically. And but in the modern church they always say no, you just got to give all your problems to God and Jesus, which is not wrong. But you as believers, as the body of Christ, as part of the church, we are commanded to love, help bear each other's crosses in their time of needs. We're not supposed to carry each other's crosses for you're not supposed to carry someone's cross for them. That's a no. But you can, just like Jesus needed help. Everyone needs help from time to time to be lifted up. Then you get all these excuses about, oh, why I'm too busy for that, or yeah, I got too many things to do in the church, or just honestly, like I wish just someone would just straight up say, like, I really just don't want to. So I got my own cross to bear, and I don't want to help bear yours too. And I'm like, I really wish they would just be upfront about that because that's really what it is. A lot of it's just false excuses. A lot of people think their own problems are way bigger than they are. And as having that outside perspective, really look like always going like, man, I wish your problems were my problems.
Yeah.
I'd be like, you want to trade places? You want to come? You're going to deal with what I got to deal with? I guarantee you don't. And I try to tell people, like, be thankful for what you have because your problems really aren't that big. They're actually pretty simple. And I would kill to be in your position.
Well, one thing I've realized is maybe my problem's not as big as yours, but to me, it's still my mountain, and that
Mm-hmm.
mountain seems big to me. And it's easy for us to say that, and we don't always know the details of people, but I do get what you're saying because I feel that way a lot of, hey, dude, you got a good life, you got a good wife, you got a good children, you have a
Mm-hmm.
good family. And I think it's just you who has the wrong mindset really with it. But we really don't know what goes inside people's
Well,
hearts
like I
or
said,
their
I'm not
heads.
saying that lightly
Yeah.
because with the people I am talking about, like I got to be like in their inner circle,
All
be
right. Yeah.
in their like very personal lives. And I'm like, guys, y'all got it made. What like oh boohoo, you have a stable job that provides for your needs and your income, and boohoo, you have a huge group of friends that you can just go and talk to and have a great time whenever you want. And oh, you got married so early. You have a spouse that genuinely cares for you and has time that like wants to spend time with you all the time. I'm like, this looks great, dude. What's your problem? And then you ask them like, dude, why do you feel like this? And then you can just see it. They don't have an answer because it's just internal bitterness. internal just insecurity that's getting in the way. And I'm like, dude, if you let that go, you're made. You've got that golden brick road in my eyes.
So
Yeah, will there be trials and tribulations for sure? But like from the outside, I'm like, and it will always pose that question: you want to trade spots? They always say no. Always.
Well, so I want to read this Bible verse real quick.
Mm-hmm.
It's James 1. It's trials and temptations. So consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. So right there, it's just telling me that we're all going to face trials of many kinds, right? But God's also saying, and the Bible's also saying, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let the perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lack wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like the wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. The person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. So it's saying if you doubt, you shouldn't expect anything either. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all that they do, because you're asking God for something, but then you're really not believing that he's going to go through it. But the first part of that is really what I liked, is consider it pure joy. But the testing of our faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. That's the thing that I like, is we're all going through these trials in life, and we're going through these things, and that God tells us multiple times throughout the Bible that we will face trials of many kinds. Not just because you believe in me, your life's going to be perfect. No, he says if they persecuted me, they'll persecute you too. So he says that multiple times. And I know a minute ago you were telling people, well, would you like to trade spots with me? And I just want to challenge you a little bit, because we're going through it. So we don't have all the answers here, right? And we're not these people that we're talking and we're saying, hey, we know everything, and if you just listen to this podcast with me and Roman, we're going to solve problems X, Y, and Z. No, we're talking about the problems that we're actually physically going through, the darkness that we're going through, the stagnation that we're going through, where we feel stuck at in life, and where we're at right now. So that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about we figured it out. So we're figuring out with you guys right now. But I do want to challenge you on that last thing that you were talking about. So you were looking at these people's lives, and you knew them intimately, and you know exactly who they are and their situation, their circumstance, and you're like, dude, you actually have a really good life. You have a good life, family, whatever it is. Maybe they're not married, maybe they don't have kids, but you have a really good life. And I think most of it is you not maybe being grateful for what you have, or you having the wrong mindset for where you're at. You asked them, would you want to trade? And nobody said, yeah. It's not like you're making $1 million, you got a boat, a house, and all this, and they're like, yeah, I want to trade. Because sometimes it's easy for us to look on Facebook and see that family or see that person, or look on social media and be like, I would trade that in a heartbeat. I'd trade it for what I had, because I'm lonely, I'm sad, I'm not doing anything, I'm broken, I'm hurt, and I need help. And that person just has it all together. They're always posting, videos of kittens, and they show their new vacation and their new boat and their new house and their new wife and all these new things. And I just feel stuck here, and they're moving forward and they're growing and they're having this. And this is where I want to challenge you at. Do you think there's somebody else that has it worse than you?
Oh, for sure. And I have challenged myself many times on this, like trying to be joyful for all the trials and tribulations. And, I do have my doubts from time to time, but always having to, renew my faith overnight again and again about how, yes, life sucks. And I have my own little way of how I communicate with God, and he always gives me the same, he always gives me the same answer over and over. And you know how they always say he gives 3 answers, which is yes, no, and wait.
Yeah.
He always gives me the wait part. Always. He never gives me a yes, he never gives me a no. He just says wait. That's what he tells me. And I get frustrated with that really bad. I'm like, wait for what? What am I waiting for? Please tell me. Because
you already feel stuck.
I'm stuck.
You want me
the wheat is not growing. Nothing is growing. What? And when it does eventually start to grow, a locust comes by, eats it, shreds it, kills it. And I go, okay, why? And then when I really do believe, like, okay, he's telling me to go do this, and I go follow it, and then it falls apart either because I got unstable again, or because friends weren't there to help, or a mixture of both. And I go, okay, God, what was all that for? What was the point of it? And he just goes, wait. And I get frustrated. I'm like, give me a clear answer for once.
Just show me where we're going, God. Show me what we're doing.
Exactly. And then I realized, like, okay, he trusting that, yes, it's happened for a reason. You go look at countless figures in the Bible. They go through horrible things.
Yeah.
David, Job, Elijah, you name it. All just Jesus himself. They get put through the worst of the worst. They always end up better on the other side. That's why I always go to Job for
That's a hard
inspiration.
book to read.
Yeah,
That
it's
used to be.
dark. It's one of the darkest books in the Bible, but it's also one of the best, and it's also one of the oldest too.
Mm-hmm.
Shows that this has been going on, and it gives you a perspective of kind of Satan's role in your life. Because people always say, like, there's this weird idea, especially in modern churches, like, oh, if Satan's after you, then you must be a sinner, or you must be indulging in sin. And I'm like, go read Job. It doesn't say that at all. Actually, it says the exact opposite. Those who get closer to God, Satan follows closer.
Well, they didn't always call him Satan. I think in the older testaments and books, they used to call him the great tempter, in which
Or the adversary, the enemy. Yeah.
So he's going to come and he's going to tempt you in some areas in your life because, once again, how are you supposed to be, like we just read that Bible verse, whole and complete and always trusting on God? Like, if life was just so great, you wouldn't need God. You know what I'm saying? It'd be like, oh, I'm so good myself and I'm so great myself. And then something happens and then it makes you turn to God, which I think is a huge thing. And I think God does have a plan for you. I do know that God has a plan for you.
Yeah.
Do I know what it is right now? Can I tell you? Because we're still in the darkness, right? We're still walking through this. We're still waiting for some type of harvest to come through. And it seems like you said, every time a locust comes, every time something gets close, we're going.
Yep.
But maybe that's just pushing you one step further. Maybe that was to get you to move. Maybe that was maybe you think that you're stuck and that you're waiting and that you're stagnant. But sometimes it's just small steps. Sometimes, like even in Exodus 23:30, it says, little by little till you can take possession of the land. What does little by little really mean? You know what I'm saying? We start thinking tiny, and we think even little, like even when we think little by little, and I say that now, it's just like, oh, little by little equals big. So that big is what I'm looking for. That's still what I'm looking for, even when God's saying little by little. But sometimes those little steps, guess what? Feel like you haven't gone that far. Sometimes those little steps feel like you're still in the same exact spot where you were. Sometimes that little step means that it started to grow and a locust came. Sometimes these little steps are what help us grow all the time. But think about if God just came one day and just like swooped and changed everything in your life. That would be, to me, overwhelming and probably too much for me to handle. And I'd be like, God, why is all this just happening so quick and so fast? And when it happens really little, we're saying, I'm stuck. Nothing's happening. What's going on, God? But I guarantee if you start looking back, you'd start seeing some type of growth because you're here right now. You're here right now podcasting, helping other people, talking to other people, sharing your experience with it. And that, to me, had to come from something. It didn't come from nothing. That came from something. That came from your experience. So that was some type of growth right now just to even get you here because you had to trust me some way or another. You had to trust God some way or another that something's going to come from this. And we're even thinking about like writing books and doing stuff like that. Growth is going to happen. It's the harvest season, but it's not this big step. And I feel like a lot of times, even when we say little by little, we just think about the big step. Because I say small steps over time consistently equals something big, right? 1% over, time equals 100% if you just keep putting in that 1%. But as we're going to that 1%, as we're trying to do these things, it just seems like it's so small that it doesn't matter that I can move 2 inches a day and it doesn't feel like anything. But over, 6 days, that's a foot. Over 60 days, that's 10 feet. Which, in the long run, I wanted to be from here to where I want to be. And that 10 feet doesn't seem good, but it's just the small steps that we're taking daily towards that. And I think, like you said, just you were trying to be, and I try to be thoughtful about like where we are, what we do have, where we are going. It's not where we want to be yet. It's not where God really has for us. But I think we need to recognize these little steps too. And when I was challenging you, I wasn't just challenging you. I was challenging myself a minute ago because
Mm-hmm.
I do the same thing. And not only am I challenging myself, I'm challenging everybody who's listening out there. And it's just me and you in the room right now. So I did say you, but really that's a challenge for myself
Yeah.
too, because it's easy for me to look at what everybody else has and says, all right, I'd trade you like that, but would you want to trade me? Because your life is really good. But
Yeah. And
my life,
I know that's not like the best way to look at it, but it's just been kind of, it's just my way of trying to show like, hey man, you've got it made. Like trying to spark that, like be grateful. Because I try real hard to be grateful for all the garbage that's happened in my life and just realize like, okay, it's contributing to something. I don't know what yet. I try to think I have an idea, but I truly have no idea. Because anytime I think I fully like, oh, this is what it's leading to,
it shifts.
yeah, it's like a carousel. It spins around again, and I go, okay, nope, that wasn't it. And just really like, because I used to do this thing too, where I would go on long walks in the middle of the night in my old neighborhood, and those walks like alone by myself, like in the dead of night in this old beautiful neighborhood, no one around, just me and the Lord. It did put in this perspective. It does put me in perspective of like, okay, there is some. This is all going somewhere. This isn't for nothing. All the bad, all the pain, all the misery, all the isolation, all just the negative. Like it does like it had a weird way of making me look at it and go, okay, yeah, I am appreciative of this actually. But that's hard when you're going through it. But when you have those pauses to just be with him, you and him, you can see and appreciate it. Because when you're going through it, like how do you, how do you be appreciative when you're getting nails put through your hands and feet on a cross? Like, in the moment, you're not gonna, but later on, you will.
Yeah.
Or when you have that heavy cross and you're carrying it forever and ever, and you start to hate it, but then when you realize and you finally can lay it down, it's you realize like, oh yeah, this thing made me way stronger. Way stronger.
And I just want to say, I think you do have a lot of strengths, and sometimes it's hard for us to see. And I just want you to know that I am proud of you because I noticed within these last couple of weeks, you joined me for church. But not only did you join me for church, you also were asking about the groups. And it wasn't like I went and said, hey, Roman, we have all these groups. You should join. You should do that. You asked me, which I think was huge because that means that you are looking for something. And then, the group that you were going to go to, somebody wasn't feeling good, so they didn't have it last night. But you're like, well, I'm going to go to this other group, which that just shows me like that's huge, man, because I feel like too often in our lives, we're going to sit there. And it's going to be like Jonah under the tree. I don't want to do this, or it's a pity party, or whatever it is. And God's like, dude, that's part of the reason why you're stuck is because you're not getting up and doing something. Even if you look at the guy in the Bible who Jesus said, pick up your mat and walk. Like he was stuck there for like 28 years or 48 years or 38 years. And he was there for 38 years. And Jesus said, pick up your mat and walk. He didn't say you're healed, now pick up your mat, because that's the way we think of it, right? And he didn't, the guy who stretched out his arm, he didn't say, stretch out, you're healed, now stretch out your arm. He said, stretch out your arm and be healed. He stretched out his arm first. You taking the step. You walking. I think that's where your strength is coming from. I think that's where it's going to really start growing is you taking the step of the things that you can control, because we can't control everything in life. We still have our moms, we still have our dads, we still have our circumstances, we still have our situations, we still have whoever hurt us still there. But the things you can control is like, hey, I'm going to go to group tonight. Even if my one group canceled, there's this other group I'm going to. Hey, I'm going to go to church on Sunday, even though maybe I don't feel like getting out of bed some days, but I'm going to get out of bed and I'm going to go to church. I'm going to go there. And you know what? I did get hurt at church. But you know what? I'm going to go try this other place. And you know what? I did get hurt by these people. But I'm going to go find some new people. And I think that's the biggest part. And I think you're doing it, man. So I want you just to recognize that, to where we were talking earlier and you're like, well, I don't even know if I could help somebody because I haven't made it there yet. I think you're going to help more people because you're walking through it right now. You're being honest, being vulnerable, and you're talking about it right now. And I don't see that many people doing about it. I hide what I haven't made it through yet, right? I hide these things that I'm still hurting with. And it's hard to heal the things that you hide. So if we hide it, we can't heal it. And you're coming out and you're like, all right, well, I'm not hiding it. I'm here. Let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I don't know if I'm the right person to talk about it because I haven't made it through to the other side yet. I think you're the perfect person to talk about it because you haven't made it through the other side. Because you're still struggling with the darkness, because you're still hurt, because you're still broken, because to be up here and talk to somebody when we're just perfect, it doesn't really help those people that are going through it.
Yeah, because that whole concept of being in the darkness, that's something I've thought about for been thinking about pretty much my whole life, and always, especially after coming to a believer, and asking God, why do you keep me in the darkness? Because I've been telling him, like, God, please help me get out of it, help me step into the light, help me grow, help me bear the fruits of the Spirit so I can stretch my branches out and take in the sunlight so those fruits can grow. And again, he always tells me, just wait. Like, and I would just always get in this deep feeling. I was like, I'm keeping you in this for a reason. Like, and then with some of the things I've learned, especially about, spiritual warfare and getting to know the enemy way too well in ways I wish I never have, but it happened how it happened, and learning, like, oh, this is how the enemy works. This is what he does. This is how I know when he's influencing something or someone, and when you can see his wicked mark or his wicked calling cards show up in life. And a lot of people don't see them. They just think, like, oh, it's just life. And I'm like, sometimes it is just, life happens, crap happens. Sometimes, like, you just see it and you go, oh, the enemy's at work here. This isn't good. But then at the same time realizing, like, you're like, wait, and because the modern church has this whole thing of, like, they're afraid of the enemy. They're afraid of Satan or Lucifer, whatever the heck you want to call him. And I'm like, that's not biblical. Like, nowhere in the Bible does it say be scared of the enemy at all. It says be wary and know when he's tempting you. Yeah. And more than anything in the entire Bible does it says, and this says this 365 times. Do you know what it says?
What is it?
It says fear the Lord.
Yeah.
It says it more than anything else in New and Old Testament. And it's weird. It says that 365 times, once for every single day of the year.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
And you have to, like, fearing the enemy is giving him power. It gives him power over your life. It gives him power over others. It gives him power over he's already got power over the world, but gives him just more power, especially influence over you. But you're supposed to fear the Lord, and you as a believer have the Holy Spirit in you. Again, the Bible even says you can't have two spirits dwell within you.
Yeah.
So it's like, who are you letting in, the Holy Spirit or the enemy? And a lot of believers I sadly see now, they let the enemy in.
Yeah.
And they think they're doing the right thing by being weary and scared of him. I'm like, no, he has no power over you. So why are you letting him have power over you?
Yeah. So we're going to start wrapping up this edition of this episode, but we're going to come back and keep talking about this. So I think it's something that we need to talk about more as people, because we get too stuck on and too focused on certain things, and we have too many people out there talking about it who've been through it.
Yeah.
But not that many people talking about it who are going through it. I think there's a big difference there.
There's a lot of people who, again, like, there's this idea of, like, oh, I'm going to get out of it and I'm going to become big.
Yeah.
I'm going to become big. I'm going to become wealthy and huge and famous, and maybe, I don't know. Am I going to say for sure? No. I'm going to say probably not. It's probably not going to look like that. It's like Scripture says, will you be prosperous? Yes.
Yeah.
Will you be whole? Yes. Will you be at peace and have joy? Yes. Does that mean you're going to be world famous? Probably not. No. You might be. You never know. I mean, look at most of the figures in the Bible. They're now world famous. Just not in the way they would have probably ever imagined.
Or maybe the way that you think. I mean, there's the lady by the well who had 5 husbands, or there's a lady who was bleeding. They don't necessarily use her name. They don't, and maybe they don't know your name, but they know you by what you did.
Yeah,
Maybe
your
they won't
story.
remember Roman, but maybe they'll remember his story and his testimony, how it did change people. And maybe you won't be rich and famous, but maybe you'll heal inside and have a whole heart.
Because it's not even like, because fame, people always strive for fame now, and fame just doesn't, like, why do you want a bunch of people who are, you're never going to talk to, you're never going to personally know? Why do you want them to know everything about them when you don't actually know them?
And
You know what I
want
mean?
everything you have, or half of them hate you for what you have.
Exactly.
So, I mean,
It's like,
it goes two ways, right?
yeah, it's just this bizarre conundrum I've always seen about fame, and especially social media. Like, I hate social media. Like, why do I want people to know everything that I'm doing? And people, you always see, people posting on social media all the great things, but they only post the great things. And half the time, people who are these massive influencers, like, yeah, they might have, they're surrounded by worldly wealth, but inside they're rotten. They're not good people. And that's why then half the time, this next big influencer has this huge controversy, or they're doing something clearly morally abhorrent. And you go, yeah, could have guessed that. Because it's not about, like, just sharing the good. You're supposed to share the bad.
Yeah, I think that your testimony is really the bad, too, of what you made it through, not just the good of, hey, here I am. So we're going to wrap it up for today. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing, Roman. I think people are going to get a lot from this series. And I feel like there's just so much to learn out of this because, like you were saying, it's not always about the certain things that we always think it's going to be about, but there is a purpose to everything. And I feel like part of your purpose is actually doing this and being here today and helping the people that we're going to be helping. And maybe we don't get a million views like some people do on their podcast, but we're also not Joe Rogan just talking about random worldly things and cussing and cursing and doing all this other stuff. We're actually talking about the real things that we're going through as real people. So thank you guys for joining us today. I just pray that whatever path you're on, that maybe we help you guys get out of that darkness. And we'll catch you guys next time.